Good morning. We begin our time together in song with Come, Sing a Song with Me by Carolyn McDade. Please make sure your microphone is muted and sing along enthusiastically as we welcome in this beautiful and precious new day. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Gwinnett. My name is Jan Taddeo. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and it is my great joy and a huge privilege to serve our faith as the minister of this congregation. I am so grateful we can be together this morning. If you have a chalice at home that you would like to light when we light our congregation's chalice, please have that ready after these words of welcome. We arrive from many places and many life experiences as we gather to recall our true selves, reflect on the meaning of our lives, and explore questions of ultimacy together. We are people who are new to Unitarian Universalism and people who are lifelong Unitarian Universalists and everywhere in between. We are people of many religious beliefs and spiritual practices. We affirm and promote this responsible search for truth and meaning. We are people of many genders and sexualities. We are people of many ethnicities, origins, ages, shapes, sizes, and expressions of our true selves. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We are people of all ages, family structures, and each brings gifts, talents, and passions that serve to affirm and promote communities of peace, liberty, and justice for all. We are people of covenant who engage with one another in ways that promote and affirm justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We are people who care deeply for our planet and understand we are inextricably and profoundly connected with the web of all existence. We are people who welcome all who are seeking a community of faith that welcomes your whole self, all that you were, all that you are, all that you yearn to be. And you are just where you should be, in a room full of compassionate, thoughtful Unitarian Universalists ready to meet you where you are. You are welcome here. You are home. And if you are a newcomer this morning, we welcome you and hope you will indeed find your spiritual home here with us. We are becoming a radically welcoming sanctuary in a green space. We foster spiritual growth as we joyfully nurture connections and community within our walls and beyond. If this is your first time here, I encourage you to join us several times to experience the full flavor of this congregation and this faith tradition, and come and be curious, courageous, and compassionate with us. And now I invite you all to take a big deep breath with me and bring your whole self to this precious time we've set aside. And let's breathe again, bringing every molecule of our being to being together. As sound vibrates through us and around us, let it remind us that we are so deeply and profoundly and inextricably interconnected with one another, with all beings, all life, all the stars, all the cosmos. We are one. Our call to worship words are from Reverend Ashley Horan. Another world is possible. We say it again and again, even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible. Not somewhere else, another world, another lifetime, but here and now, for us and for all. Another world is possible. There is no single path toward that world, no one strategy or approach that will restore balance, heal brokenness, sow wholeness, free creation. There are many routes toward liberation, toward freedom, but the abundance of options does not absolve us of the responsibility of acting. Another world is possible. The call, the duty of each moment in history is to discern who are we and what can we bring with humility, integrity, faith. What is the context and how can we address it with agility, resilience, skill? What is the vision and how can we realize it with accountability, relationship, joy? Another world is possible. In this time of despair, of fear, of collapse, this time that is both like every other era and like no other time in history, it is audacious to declare our faith and to commit our work to a world that is more free, more just, more whole. But we are an audacious people in good company with many kin, and we are ready to show up and work hard and stay humble and make friends and hold the vision, starting here now today with us and persevering, however long it takes until that other world is not only possible, but another world is here. You have your chalices ready to light? Then let us begin with these words from Reverend M. Maureen Kaloran. There is a challenge and a blessing in the choices of our lives. May we, in the privacy of the space behind our closed eyes, light candles of the heart to honor the power of our choices this day and every day. For the choices that have hurt others, may a candle of forgiveness light our heart this day. For choices that have resulted in the feeling of shame, may the light of compassion heal our souls. From the choices that have harmed our bodies or our minds, may a candle of tenderness help us chart a new course. From the choices to remain silent when the voice of justice called our name, may a candle of commitment give us courage. From the choices to turn away from loving, may a candle of possibility inspire us to take risks anew. From the choices that give birth to a spirit of change, may the light of celebration strengthen us as we walk unfamiliar paths. And now, friends, it is time for our Wonder Box. For those who are new to Unitarian Universalism, we are curious people. We like to ask questions. We encourage questions. And we enjoy finding lots of different answers. And so now we open our Wonder Box to see what's inside today. Aha! It's like a jungle in here. Wow. 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 Okay. Well, we'll just... Okay. So big, long vine that is out of control. There we go. Okay. Oh, one of my favorite things, a heart. I don't know if you can see that very well. Maybe if I prop it up there, it will be visible. Ah, a bell. I love bells. I once knew a woman who collected bells. She had an entire basement full of bells. I'm not like that. An earth ball. Don't look too closely, but yes, it looks like a form of our earth at some point in its very long history. Ah, and this is a pendant that was given to me by a member of the Boca Raton congregation who has since passed. But it's an interfaith. It was made in the at his home congregation in New York, Glen Falls, New York. And it has all these symbols of different faith traditions. And they're all together in the circle, which is nice. Kind of a sense of togetherness there and connection. All right, well, these are things that have to do with not just the story this morning, but with the whole service. And we'll see how that plays out. The story this morning is called The Bell of Justice. This is a story drawn from a Henry Wadsworth Longfellow poem, which was based on a story from Gesta Romanorum, a Latin language collection that was compiled toward the end of the 13th century. The story is also found in Burma and Russia, and this is a version retold by Faye Mogensen. Re Giovanni of Abruzzo of Italy was a good and wise king. There was nothing he wanted more for his kingdom than for it to be famous for its justice. To that end, he built a great bell tower in the center of town, and in it he hung a beautiful brass bell with a long hemp cord attached as its pull. Re Giovanni sent riders throughout the land to proclaim to all his citizens that justice would be served. Anyone who felt that they had been mistreated was invited to ring the bell. When it rang, the king could hear it, no matter where he was. And when he heard it ring out, he would summon his judges to hear the case. At first, the bell rang loudly and often when a neighbor was greedy, or when a thief came visiting, or when a dispute could not be settled. The judges gathered to listen and consider every case that came before them, and justice was served. Abruzzo grew famous as a land of equity and fairness. The king and his people relaxed and became so accustomed to the justice of the land that they didn't notice when the bell cord grew worn and thin. Finally, little was left of the cord but tatters. It might have disappeared completely, except that a vine attached to the cord had begun to grow. So we're going to return for a moment to the time when the tower was being built. There was a soldier who was young and full of idealism. He mounted his horse and traveled out into the world to offer his services far and wide. He and his horse were skilled at war. Together they earned the soldier both fame and fortune. By the time the vine had wound itself around the bell cord, the soldier had grown old. By then he had returned to retire high up on a hill in a grand estate. There he felt himself above the affairs of state and above the law. He was interested in little else than his gold. Even more than anyone else, he had forgotten about the bell tower and its cord. Day in, day out, the old soldier counted his gold. He gloated over the piles of coins, and he loved how they gleamed. He was so preoccupied with his good fortune that he forgot his faithful horse. She had carried him into many battles and saved his life more than once, but now the mare was old and lame. The soldier was too stingy to feed her, and instead he let her loose to find her own food. Well, it didn't take long before the horse had devoured the small amount of sweet grass that grew on the hillside. She wandered further afield, finding little to eat. Her skin sagged, her back swayed, her bones ached, and her stomach growled. One day, when she was close to town, the mare's nose twitched. She smelled something green and fresh. She followed the scent into the town square. The luscious smell was none other than the vine that grew from the bell of justice. The horse began to gnaw on the vine. She was so hungry that she didn't notice that with every bite she took, the bell rang. She was so hungry that the bell of justice rang out over and over and over and over, and the villagers heard it, and the justices heard it, and the old king heard it. Soon the square was full of curious onlookers who became all the more curious when they saw that there was no person near the bell tower. Instead, it was a scrawny old horse ringing the bell of justice. One after another, they recognized that the horse belonged to the old soldier on the hill. Soon the square was filled with murmurs about his treatment, the treatment the soldier was giving his faithful mare. How, they wondered, could he have allowed her to decline into such rough shape? When the soldier heard his summons, he laughed. What foolishness was this? How could a hero such as himself be called a criminal? But when he arrived in the square, he found it full of outraged men and women who made it clear that he had lost their respect. The soldier went home with his tail between his legs to fetch some of his precious gold to pay the fine and to pay for proper food and care for his faithful horse. The king had that bell cord restored. It would remind the soldier and everyone else that no one, not the rich or the famous or even the heroic, are above the bell of justice. No person or animal is beneath being served by that bell. Let it ring on. Musician and songwriter John Lennon imagined a bold vision for a peaceful, unified world and put that vision to song in 1971. Let's listen together and imagine as Jack Johnson sings Lennon's song, Imagine.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. And no hell below us, and above us is only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. No religion too. Imagine all the people living life for peace. And you may say that I'm a dreamer, but I am not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. And you may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
John Lennon's song is probably known, I don't know how far and wide, around the globe, in many places, I'm sure. There's concepts in there that I have been contemplating for years. Some of them are easy. No heaven, no hell. I'm Unitarian Universalist. We don't have heaven and hell. We have today. We have this life. We have the work we need to do here and now in living our values in the world and decreasing suffering and increasing compassion, building connections. No countries to kill or die for. That takes me to Star Trek images where, you know, the Earth is a whole federation. So it's an interesting thought. No religion. Well, that one really bothers me because I'm a religious person. I serve a religious tradition. And I have a just absolute faith that most faith traditions share more than they have different, share much more that is alike than is different. But that's okay. I understand that sentiment is that there is the appearance that a lot of conflict comes out of our differences around religious beliefs, and that is true. So the work there is ahead of us. No possessions, no need for greed or hunger. What a lovely concept. What a lovely concept. The siblinghood of humanity, sharing all the world. It sounds beautiful. John Lennon didn't expect this to become a major anthem around the world. his wife Yoko Ono says, it's just what he believed. It's what he imagined, what he hoped for in our world. Now, this was written in the time of the Vietnam War. Civil rights efforts had been going on, and there'd been tragic losses with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and both the Kennedys, and so much more, so many people injured, killed in that effort for justice. And thank goodness for songwriters, artists, poets, musicians, writers, and dancers, and all of those who help us to imagine possibilities for ourselves and for our lives and for our world. What a gift they give us. In 1971, there were about 3,775,760,000 people on the planet. And that number has just more than doubled today to 7,794,800,000, give or take a few. More than doubled our population of humans on this planet. It's unfathomable, just like the numbers of people who are dying from COVID are kind of unfathomable, that we're up to 2,122,587 deaths around the globe. Drop in the bucket for 7 billion maybe, but each one of those people was part of a family, a circle of connection that's no longer there. They're grieving. So this utopian world that John Lennon describes sounds fabulous, and I'm reminded of the book The Giver by Lois Lowry, written in 1993, which was supposed to be a utopian world in which sameness was the most important aspect of their culture, of their world, of their lives. Sameness. And there was only one person who was allowed to hold the memories, who was bestowed with the memories of what it was before sameness. And it actually becomes a dystopia. This person who receives the memories realizes sameness is not wonderful. This is not a good life. This isn't how we want to be. All of our uniqueness and all of our differences enrich our lives. Can we experience our oneness and still embrace our uniqueness? I hope so. In our story, we have one small village committed to restorative justice, keeping the peace regardless of status, justice for all beings, no person or animal beneath being served by justice. That's a small village in Abruzzo, Italy, where we were hoping to be last fall, where Russ's family comes from. Maybe next year. Instead of trying to think of the whole world, imagining the whole world as one, this big macro glimpse of everything, I think it really is healthier for us to go micro and look at where we are, look at the places where we're living. How can we live into some of this dream here where we are? And my teacher calls those islands of sanity. How can we create islands of sanity in small places and communities around us? Because a dystopian future, as Ashley Haran's words speak to, is very likely for us at this time in the human story. And I was thinking about all the trauma around this world. I was thinking that trauma seems like something everyone around the globe must have some experience of at this point. Between all of the wars and the hunger and poverty and illness and this pandemic and all the grief around the globe, that trauma is either in us now, or we've inherited it from generations before. We know that people who descended from slave families, enslaved peoples, are holding that trauma still in their DNA. So there are stories that can guide us in this. In 1971, Ann Atwater and C.R. Ellis were appointed as co-chairs of a desegregation board in North Carolina. Anna Atwater was a black civil rights worker, and C.R. Ellis was a white male member of the KKK. And I don't know if it was meant as a joke or what, but they were appointed to be the co-chairs of this committee. Well, of course, it started out pretty hard, and there's a movie about this. This started out rough, and over time, they came to understand that they shared a love for their children and their children's future. And from that, they found more that they had in common than was different. And he ended up tearing up his KKK card, and they became best friends. She spoke at his funeral. That is a profound story of breaking down barriers and building bridges. A profound story of finding possibility where there seemed like there was none. A profound story of sacrifice for the common good. They had a sense of purpose, a shared sense of purpose for the education of their children and the care of their children. And the soldier in the story had this sense of purpose for so long, being out in the world. I think in that time, the idea of war was to bring peace. I've always struggled with that, but that he was thought well of because he did good acts and brave acts in the world. And when he grew old and couldn't be a soldier anymore, it seems that he lost that sense of purpose and substituted it with greed. And that's something we all struggle with as we age. What is our sense of purpose as our abilities and our interests change over time? And a sense of purpose is important to everyone. It's often why people look for faith communities, because often faith communities provide a place to be of service, to be of taking action to make the world a better place. I think a lot about the fate of our young people today. I know that our son's generation, the millennials, who came of age right around the turn of the century, they came out of college with a completely broken economic system. We'd had a huge crash and a long recovery. And many did okay. Probably most have struggled. And now we're looking at an even more difficult situation 20 years later, with this pandemic causing tremendous joblessness and loss of schooling. Education is rough. A lot of students have dropped out of college this year. I think the number's over 600,000. It's a very different world. And I hear all the time, people are wanting normal again. When are we going to get back to normal? And I asked my teacher about this normal thing, and she said she thinks what people are looking for is certainty. And we live in such uncertain times. A new change of administration in Washington makes many of us feel a little more optimistic that we can find some certainty going forward. It's not going to happen overnight, and I don't know how it will look. But we're going to have uncertain times for a while yet. And that is a really difficult place to live, in uncertainty. And here's our young people living in uncertain times. How do we support them, mentor them, guide them in this time? First, I would ask the older generation listening to imagine backwards. Imagine, how did your path depend on the certainty of societal conditions? How did the choices you had the choices before you, how did all of that depend on things that felt certain about how society worked? We are in uncertain times, and it's going to become more uncertain. So I think what we need to do is connect young people with ways to serve the common good. And the common good is a concept that is coming up a lot these days, and I think it's important that it's coming up. It's coming up in part because the common good tells us to wear masks. It's that simple. Wear masks. They help slow down the spread of the virus. Keep your distance from people. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. All those things are still important even as we come up to a year into this pandemic. How do we, during a pandemic, when we can't gather in the ways we usually do with people in our lives, how do we break down barriers and build bridges? I don't know the answer to that. Most of us, I think, are getting pretty Zoom weary. And having more Zoom meetings to try to build bridges and break down barriers sounds a little overwhelming to me anyway. But I think there are ways that we can do this. I think there's ways we can do it in real spaces, and there's ways we can do it in virtual spaces. I think what we're going to need over the next, I don't know how long, years, forgiveness, tenderness, compassion, keeping our heart in a holy place, a commitment to the common good, helping others to see how it helps them to do something to help others. Everything from driving the speed limit to wearing a mask, to contributing what you can to organizations that are helping those who are really suffering in this time, to cheering on our healthcare workers. Check out the article on the front page of the AJC today. It broke my heart. It will break yours, but it's important to read. It's important to know what's going on in this state in our hospitals right now. They are overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed. Building bridges and breaking down barriers is not easy. And one thing I'm doing is not building up a barrier to start with. I have new neighbors. I'm not asking them how they vote. I'm not asking them about social issues. I'm talking to them about their lives. I ask them about their work, about their kids. I ask them about their hobbies and their crafts. I don't build up a barrier by starting with assumptions that they are different than me or that they think differently than me. And I'm sure they probably do, because we all think differently. But I'm just not going to build the barrier to begin with. So consider that. Consider possibilities for how you can not build a barrier, break down a barrier, build a bridge. Think about the times you've done it, that you've seen it, that you've seen others do it, the stories you've heard. We need the courage of our faith to build and stronger communities of shared vision and purpose. Lennon said, live for today, living for today, living for peace. Love will guide us. I am confident love will guide us through sunshine and rain, and one day at a time, we will be one. And now I invite you to enter into a small group conversation with other people here today. And please join, when you receive the prompt, please join in a small group. Even if you're not in a mood to share or don't feel like you have anything to share, come and listen and be in the group. What I'm inviting you to talk about are stories of building bridges or breaking down barriers that increase a sense of unity or connection. Stories you've experienced, stories you've heard, or maybe there's a place where you see a possibility for breaking down a barrier or building a bridge that you couldn't see before, that maybe now you can commit yourself to doing that. So share something along those lines with one another in these 15 minutes. Enjoy your conversations. Here in this congregation, we strive to create a model of beloved community, and we do this in part through the care and support of one another. We each arrive here holding joys and sorrows, triumphs and disappointments. We set aside time in this communal space to honor that which we carry on our hearts, to celebrate together and to grieve together. If you would like your joy or sorrow shared aloud in the service, please type it into the chat space on Zoom, and our pastoral care associate, Mandy Miller, will read them aloud as I light a candle of compassion to light your joy or your sorrow into the collective consciousness. Before we begin sharing, I invite us to enter into a time of silent reflection to create a container of compassion to hold our joys and our sorrows. Into this container, we offer that which is most on our hearts to share with this beloved and supportive community. We offer this candle for all the joys and the sorrows that are held in the silent sanctuary of the heart. May we hold one another with compassion. Our congregation is committed to creating a more compassionate world, and to this end, each quarter we split our plate collection with an organization nominated by a member of the congregation and selected by our Giveaway the Plate Committee. More nominations are needed. Please see this week's e-news for how to do that. Our first quarter plate recipient is Beyond the Ribbon, a Gwinnett-based organization advocating for support and resources beyond the diagnosis of cancer to educate, inspire hope, cultivate awareness, and empower individuals. Our plate contributions also support the shared ministry of this congregation, so I ask that you please give important ministry in our wider community, as well as the vision and mission of our congregation. As we listen to our pianist Brian Bishop playing Horse by William Grant Steele, you will see on the screen ways to contribute to our offering via pay. If you are worshiping with us for the first time, your presence here today with us is a great and generous gift, and you may choose to let the plate pass if you like. The offering will now be received, most gratefully. May the generous gifts received this week move us towards realizing our vision of a more connected and compassionate world. I am grateful to Mandy Miller for her support in the service this morning, and so grateful for Christiana managing the Zoom room and Russ Taddeo running video and sound. And now is the time for our call to connection. I know we're Zoom weary. I know it's hard. It is still so important that we maintain and build our connections during this time so that we are still very strong and connected when we come back together again. Here are some ways to connect. If you are new to our community, please text welcoming to the number on the screen. You will receive just a few texts and emails for just a few weeks. You may get a call, you may get a card in the mail. That's it. And you can register for our events off of our website, see what we have, look for the various activities. There is a button in the middle of the screen on the right side to register, and you can see the different things that are offered. And sign up for our weekly e-news and our newsletter, and look through our website. If you are new and you'd like to see some of our past services, or if you've been around a while and want to see past services, go to our YouTube channel. All our services get posted up to the YouTube channel after they're edited and rendered, so join us. And if you want to be of service, the food collection is on February 7th. At first Sunday of every month, we collect food for the Lawrenceville Cooperative Ministry. So please start picking up extra items when you go to the store, and be ready to bring them on the 7th. We still need platelets for our member Terry, who's going to be starting up chemo again soon, maybe next week. And so we need more platelets. I'll be there Wednesday afternoon. Maybe I'll see some of you along the way. If you also want to expand your horizons a little bit, we talked about interfaith work and racial justice a little bit. On February 4th, a week from this Thursday at 8 p.m. is a Gwinnett Interfaith Alliance program to have a panel discussion on Movement for Black Lives. It's not really so much a discussion. It's people who are African American sharing their lived experiences in Gwinnett County. And other ways to connect. Our covenant groups are starting tomorrow night. We have our Wednesday night groups are kind of not ready for prime time yet. We may need to combine them to the first and third Wednesday. So if you are thinking about joining a small group, which is a great way to get connected and have deeper conversations on our monthly themes, please sign up today, so we can know what we're going to do with those groups. The Monday night group is actually full now, and the Thursday morning group has one opening, and Wednesday has lots of space, either Wednesday. So sign up, and if we need to combine them, we will, but hopefully we'll get enough people. I also want to just make you aware, as you're continuing to explore your responsible search for truth and meaning, this week we have a lot of Cups and Druid activities. So we have the Vision Journaling Workshop on Wednesday night with Candace. We have the Full Moon Magic Ritual on Thursday night with Sherry. And on Saturday night we have the Imbolc Ritual led by Bob. And then every Sunday at 12:30 we have elementary religious exploration, except second Sunday that week we have RE at home. It's because we have our Spiral Scouts program on second Sundays. So if you have children of elementary age, please get them registered if they haven't already, so you can get access to these programs for them. Our adult programs continue every Sunday at 10 a.m. Where we have activities and conversations around our monthly theme. Both the elementary programs and the adult and teen programs will be taking place next Sunday, even though we have our field trip. Our 10 o'clock program and our 12:30 program will still be happening. Check the e-news and the newsletter and our website for other activities. Our regular events are Gwinnett Understanding Secular Truths on second Mondays, Covenant Choir every Tuesday. Come join us. We've got music planned now, virtual choir music planned through May, and we're getting started, so join us. Yarns from the Heart, first and third Wednesdays. Courageous Coffee House every Thursday at 6. And bring your poetry, your music, something to share at that coffee house. Women's Spirituality is on second Fridays. Belief Exploration second Sundays. And Exploring Tarot with Sherry every Sunday at 4 o'clock. We just got in new shipments of coffee and dark chocolate cocoa mix and dark chocolate bars. So if you need coffee or chocolate or cocoa, please text equal to that phone number, and we'll get in touch with you to find out what you want and get it to you. And now we say the words we say together to extinguish our chalice, followed by our closing song, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place by Joyce Poley. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I close with these words from Michael Schuler. We have reached the end of this time for the gathering of memory and for letting the imagination play with future possibilities. We have enjoyed magic moments and edified each other. Shall it be concluded then? Or will this adventure now commenced continue? Our separate paths converging, meeting, merging in the unending quest for love more perfect, the joyous struggle for meaning more sufficient, and life more abundant. Is this ending to be an ending, or merely prelude to new, more glorious beginnings? I pose the question. In your heart lies the answer. Our service has ended, and now our service to one another in our wider communities begins. Thank you, my beloveds, for taking such good care of yourselves and being so careful. I know that many of us are experiencing losses from this pandemic, and yet in our own congregation, we are still whole. And for that, I am grateful to you for doing what needs to be done for the common good. See you on February 3rd. I love you very much, and have a good week.